now while I'm talking about. So now the recording is on. Very good. All right, so we're all set. So yes, you can write on the boards. You can say, no, I'm talking about this right here. What does that all mean? Or what is this or what is that? So that's good. We can do that. And of course, it's very easy. You don't have to worry about, I just go this and clear the screen. Okay. As I said, I can also look at your assignments online. It may not be something you want to do in the middle of class, but during office hours and so. And we can go to a private room as well. And I can pull up your assignment. And I can look right at it. And you can say, wow, the question 3 or whatever, or this part of the concept map I'm lost on, or in the first, the essay question, what does this part right here mean? I can look right at what you're, so it's not like, where are you? I know exactly where you are because you're pointing right to it, okay? Anybody had any problems with Blackboard, that sort of stuff, downloading the book or, anything necessary to get started while I check the roll again? As I said, I don't really... Okay, I think I get everybody checked is here. We've had no issues with Blackboard. Give me thumbs up, a smiley face, or type, or whatever you want to do. Don't wait till the last minute, right? You check with, I know you may be busy, yeah, but check with Blackboard right away, and make sure everything is working the way, and you're comfortable with the way it's laid out. Like, oh my gosh, do I know where the assignments are? Yeah, cool, very cool. Remember, if you have a question, you know where I am. All right, so do we have any questions about what we were talking about in class the other day, right, as we get to the point where we start lecture now? We're all good? We've looked through it. We've read through the chapter. I mean, people always ask me, what's the best way to get through your exams, get through your tests, do well in your class? I'm like, it's the old traditional way, folks. It's time. It's reading the chapters, doing the homework, doing the studying. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know what, there's some formula, and I don't know, some classes were this way and some weren't, but X amount of hours in class equals X amount of hours in homework, or studying. At 3, I would say, so, oh gosh, you're in, say, 4 hours. So if you're doing 12 hours in the week, that might be a lot. I don't do a study guide, Courtney, and here's why. Study guides tend to make students focus on just, it's like bullet points, and I really am, if you kind of go to those learning objectives that we were talking about, I'm really trying to get y'all to think of this in a bigger picture, because that really helps you understand more. So I don't do study guides. I tell folks my notes are my study guides. So these recordings, the notes you're taking from me on my exams, I won't ask you questions from the book that I don't discuss, okay? So if you're thinking about, now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't read the book. It's an awesome book, and I discuss a lot of the book. There are just, especially towards the genetics, it becomes a time thing, right? But, if you read it in the book, and if you're confused about this, of course, then what you do is you email me and you talk to me. You say, hey, I read in the book about chromosome mapping. Yeah, it's one of the things that is in the book. And I'm like, yeah, we don't really do a lot. And I'll give you more specifics. But your best study guide, to be honest with you, is going to be your notes, and of course these PowerPoint slides. Now, speaking of your notes, there's something I forgot the other day. I really encourage students to take notes, and this is something that's come out of observations I've made throughout the years. There came this point where I stopped seeing lots of students take notes. They were just sitting there, and I'm like, all right, maybe they're recording me, and I don't mind any of that, and I was hoping, but it seemed like the grades weren't showing that. So I don't care how you take notes. I want you to take notes. I want you to bring in my PowerPoints and mark on them, perhaps. Take the old traditional pen and paper, do them on your computer. I don't care. I want you to take notes. And as an incentive for that, on the exams, for the last 15 minutes of the exam, I'll let you use your notes. So the exams are, an hour and 20 minutes. You can sit in there as long as you'd like. But I'm only going to let you open your notes at 1 hour and 5 minutes. So if you get done real early and whatever, sit there and go over that exam again and go over it again and go over it again and go over it a million times, because I'll bet you'll find one you'll go, oh my goodness, have I not gone over this? I'd have missed this, and that would have been an 88, and this would have made a 90, right? That kind of thing. And then the last 15 minutes, like I said, I'll let you. Did I say 15? Yeah, I did say 15, didn't I? Anyway, so that is an incentive to take good notes. So, Courtney, to answer your question, taking good notes, reading the test, going over these slides. All right, that's really the best way. If you ever do get lost in the forest for the trees, and I know I did. I remember I took a ichthyology class one time, and when the professor ended his 4-hour lecture, long story, they like to lecture a long time. Well, that explains breeding behaviors in wrasses. We all, as students, looked at each other and said, oh my God, is that what we were talking about? If you ever find yourself just that way, stop me, right? Let's back up. Let's find out where we were. So for the other day, we were talking about different ways of reasoning. Reasoning is important in science, isn't it? Not just science, right? Didn't I tell you the scientific method is, it's more than figuring out where the stars are like and all that sort of stuff. It's driving to work, isn't it? It's getting ready for school. It's just your everyday life. I mean, that's one of the things that students tend to do sometimes. Like, please don't do this. Don't make this more difficult than it really is. If you think about these types of reasoning, the most difficult thing with inductive and deductive is remember which one is which, isn't it? I mean, understanding the principle of this, for example, in inductive reasoning, what we do is, and you know what I'm doing right now? I'm actually looking and reviewing myself. So this would be a great place in the exam when you whip out your notes to make sure you got them the right way, because I am going to ask you questions on these. So inductive reasoning, what we're doing is we're going to look at a lot of small things. Sharks have spiral valves. Sharks have spiral valves. All sharks have spiral valves. Pay attention to the wording. Sometimes the wording will give it away, right? The wording will give it away. It'll make these, if it's inductive reasoning, you end up with this, thou is, this more proclamation kind of thing. The other way around with deductive, remember, you end up with a prediction. That's really, to me, it's kind of easy to remember which is which by remembering so much about deductive. I need to see a prediction. I can take a lot of, the earth revolves around the sun. All right, we're going to use deductive reasoning. The earth revolves around the sun, so does Venus, so does Mars. It looks to me, I ain't no astronomer, it looks to me that planets revolve around suns. Planets revolve around one another. Anybody disagree with me? Because some of you there might be some weird planets out there doing weird kind of things. There's that one, right, isn't it? Neptune that kind of, it's not in the, it's a woo, comes from below and really weird. But anyway, if I look through a telescope at some place out there and I see a sun and I can figure out there's a planet going around it, which is just absolutely blows my mind. You got, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right. You know what they say? The Astronomical Society defines a planet as a body that that knows it's a planet, right? It's this weird kind of definition. Apparently Pluto, there are other rocks out there where Pluto is that are actually bigger than Pluto, so it's not a size thing. Yeah. My God, they got death threats and stuff when they took Pluto off the list. Up at the planetarium up in New York, they said they got letters, death threats, Yeah, kids, 3rd grade class, please don't make Pluto not a planet. So it... Why is family is that person my part? Hana means family. Oh, Courtney, whoa, where are we? I'm sorry. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Ohana's a character then, right? Yeah, oh, I got you. I got you. As a kid, it was so where I was going with planets. Early in the 90s, I remember it distinctly. I'm reading through a magazine, I don't remember what magazine, and they're talking about exoplanets. They're finding planets elsewhere. Now, to y'all, you grew up in an era in which that wasn't such a big deal, right? There's exoplanets. You remember, we really didn't know there were galaxies, other galaxies beyond our own until, not in astronomy, it was early part of the 1900s, 20s, 30s, 40s, something like that. Then we looked out with our telescopes and went, holy cow, there's a whole bunch. Yeah. Yeah, me too. Oh, he's incredible. My wife loves him. She follows him, sends me all of his tweets. I'm like, I'm going to block you because you're giving me too many tweets here. So, in the early 90s, we discovered there were other planets out there. Now, how they know there's a planet circulating a sun is a whole thing into itself, which is kind of cool. I can explain it to you, but I don't want to waste time here. If you want to know, I'll tell you in class how it's done. It's really neat. It has to do with blocking the light. But if we looked out there and we saw this thing going around a sun, we might say, things go around bigger things. Smaller objects or sun's a lot bigger than us. Smaller, moon's a lot smaller. Go around bigger things in our solar system. So I'm going to make a prediction. I'll bet you that thing that I'm seeing out there going around the sun is revolving around the sun. You see what I mean? Didn't I make a prediction? I make a prediction. I mean, I don't know that it's doing that. I could collect further evidence to support that, and that's the whole, hypothesis thing. But that's a reasonable prediction to make. That's deductive reasoning. So maybe when we look at these things again, remember the weird thing, like every once in a while you get the things that kind of throw, like the last one here with the Nazca lines, right? So hopefully you've looked at these things again and you've really tried to dissect. It's not dissect by the word. The break is between the S's. Sorry. Anyway, it's one of my soapbox things. Drives me nuts when they say it on TV. Dissected. Anyway, all right. Now, let's pick one. We're talking about space. Astronomers have observed that farther galaxies are from Earth, the faster they are moving away from us. Therefore, the universe, right? We shall say the universe is expanding. Okay, so we're really building. So that's obviously deductive. Now, let's do a deductive one. Let's do the mammal one since we talked about it the other day and we skipped it here. But let's go back and review. One of the major characteristics of mammal is the presence of hair. Since a killer whale does not have hair, this is another example like the Nazca lines where I was trying to show you that these statements, these reasoning statements can be correct. Oh gosh, I used to ask these questions in marine science that kind of fit along that line, and this one student just came unglued on me. I remember I was like, come on, think about it. It's easy to do, but I won't do that to y'all. But anyway, since a killer whale does not have hair, you conclude, I predict, I say, I state, not a mammal, right? Doesn't mean truth. Anyway, so, and that's kind of a good thing to think about science in general. You can make statements that seem to make sense but aren't truth. Like the last one, right? It wasn't space aliens. I find it hard to believe with space aliens they would travel as far as they did without saying hello. You know, I mean, it's always kind of weird to me. I think about everybody with their fancy cameras now with megapixels. Nobody gets a good picture of a spacecraft. Well, when I was a kid, oh my goodness, you could find them in the magazines, and it was a bunch of hippies throwing a frisbee around the backyard where they were drunk having a barbecue. Give me a break. Even I could tell that when I was 8 and 9 years old. I'm going to break this a little bigger. If you started the scientific method assignment and you look at this, I need to do that again. There's parts of it. There's a multiple choice, but this is the last. It's not really an essay. It's kind of a short answer part, okay? If you haven't, then fine. This isn't the whole thing. I'm not sitting here going to give you the entire thing, but I'm going to get you started on these different parts of a scientific study. Yeah? Ancient aliens, there were evidence there were aliens in ancient texts. Yeah, I've seen some of that. And sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know about that. You know, you look at it and you go, it's kind of, I remember as a kid, what was that called? I don't remember the fellow's name, but he had a book we all read, and he had pictures, and we're all, yeah, I guess. It's interesting to think about for sure. All right, what I'm having you do here in the last part, and interjecting and stuff, please do that, right? I love that. That's the whole part of making the class kind of move along more than just me just drudging through the information. Isn't it kind of like Plato and Diogenes about the featherless bipeds are man? Oh. I like that, featherless bipeds. That's neat stuff. I don't know. I mean, again, I think there's life out there, whether they've come here. I just don't see it yet. I really don't see anything that completely convinces me. It's neat to think about. The 19th century, and this is the way it's written in the assignment. There's a disease in the Dutch East Indies known as beriberi, right? Beriberi, not berry like strawberries. But if you got beriberi, then you waste away. All right, you see what I mean? Overall body weakness, inappetence, they're not eating. And when they die, so this is not a 100% fatality. I don't know what it is. Somebody could bang that out real quick if they wanted to. But when fatalities occurred, which I think is an interesting sentence, but I included it in there because it reminds me of something, the result of heart failure. It's an interesting thing as biologists. Organisms die. All organisms die. Every who have a heart. I have to qualify that. By heart failure. That's what you fall off a building. It's heart failure. Your arm gets cut off. It's heart failure. That's what kills you. Okay. So when I was actually doing necropsies, cutting up marine mammals on the beach, when I was worked at SeaWorld, ones that would wash up dead, people would ask, "Do you know what killed it?" And we would tell them, "Heart disease." And they'd say, "Oh," or "heart failure." And they'd say, "Oh." So anyway, so it wasn't a lie, obviously. So heart failure. Originally, now think about what I said to you a hypothesis is. I said many times a hypothesis ends in a question mark, or it's an interrogative type statement, or it's, and here's where you're going to see kind of that subtlety of it. It's a statement of where someone's starting originally. First question, investigators felt that it was a bacteria that causes the disease. All right? So think about that statement. Originally, investigators felt it was a bacterium causing the disease. So imagine these guys sitting around. Hey, Dr. A, Dr. B, Dr. C, what do you think? Dr. A says, I think it's a bacterium. Dr. B, I agree. I think it's a bacterium. Dr. C, I think it's a bacterium. Dr. D, yeah, I think it's a bacterium. I'm wondering, is it a bacterium? Right? So what, down below the first question, what is the initial, because this question goes on. I'm only showing you the first part. What's the initial hypothesis here? Short answer. What would you write? Remember, they're trying to figure out what's causing beriberi, and they've come up with an idea, thought, a guess. Educated. You could have said aliens. Maybe. Talk to me, folks. I'm still kind of like Brandon. I gotta look at that. Sure. Everybody agree with Jordan? Well, since I just said sure, you probably will. But that makes sense, right? Yeah, absolutely. So look at that again, right? It's not a question. You got to kind of dig it out of there. So, I can't do that to you. I can't simply ask you things and ask you to repeat them because you're not learning. So this is why, if you read those things, and this is why I say talk to me, all right? Original investigators felt it was a bacterium caused disease, so they set up an experiment. So now I'm going to start asking about different parts of an experiment. This is where I get my pencil to start working, okay? So they take chickens, because you're not going to take humans and inject them with a disease. And you're going to assume that disease in chickens is similar to us. And if you're thinking, well, I could give you some examples of what causes avian bird flu. I almost said avian swine flu. Rabies is a good example. Oh, yeah. Poor mice. I like mice. Maybe not enough. Maybe more chickens. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what you got around. Chickens, right? So anyway, what they're going to do with these chickens, and this is where students tend to get hung up. Let me see if my pencils. Oh, Dorian has jumped ahead. You should have said spoiler alert. Oh, man. I put the battery in backwards. Anyway. Shave half? Yeah, they do. Relatively similar. Skin, too, on pigs. All right, so they take these chickens and they inject them with blood. Now, don't get hung up in the injection with the blood, because in the answer, no, do that. But that's okay. That's okay. Remember, this is about learning. I still want you to know, what do you mean thiamine deficiency? That doesn't answer the whole thing, blah, blah, chickens. Don't get hung up in the blood. Oh, you stupid pencil. The blood is not the blood is the delivery vehicle. It's the way in which they're going to get the bacteria, right? Which is, if you're sick with a bacterium, that's where you're going to find it, right? In the blood. They're going to take the blood from symptomatic individuals, people who have beriberi. They're going to take some blood and they're going to inject them into the chickens, okay? Now, here's the thing, and this is what you got to keep in mind. And don't read any further quite yet. If those chickens that I inject with the blood die from beriberi, is it for sure beriberi? I'm sorry, is it for sure a bacteria? Excuse me. Is it for sure? Are you reasonably confident that it's a bacterium? Now, There is no necessarily right or wrong answer to this. So if you're anybody else? I have to agree with Dorian, but I'd also have to agree with Courtney. Thank you. Perfect. True, right? But when you injected those chickens with blood that you thought had a bacterium, you already predispositioned yourself to say if they died, it's a bacterium. But as Courtney kind of says there, that she's not sure, because have you controlled, and that's where that word comes in, and that's actually the third question. I'll talk about in just a second what are independent, dependent variables. But have you controlled for the fact that it could be something else? What if it isn't the bacterium? So if you think about setting up an experiment, what are you going to do? You're going to take a set of chickens and you're going to inject them. Okay, now, you're also going to take a set of chickens, right, that you're not going to inject. Because think about it. If those chickens die of beriberi, it's not a bacterium. Do you see what I mean by a control? For what, mortality rate? Rare, huh? Excellent. I love that. Brandon, thank you. That's neat. No, it could be, Dorian. It could be. We don't know. We don't know at this point. But see, you know, that's why I was kind of agreeing with both of you, because, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But remember, in science, it's not about what you think, believe, or maybe what you set yourself up to believe. It's what is the quote unquote the truth. So that's what a control is all about, okay? A control is going to be a set of chickens that you don't inject. All right, now look at the last sentence, because that's very important. Then I'm going to start jumping into independent, dependent variables. I do too. But you know. Now they do stuff with tissue cultures and cell cultures, which is, you know, which is certainly less invasive for these critters. No, now you could, but now we're interjecting all kinds of other variables. We're going to keep this simple, right? If you walked into a room and you flipped on a light switch, oh wait, which I just did there. Why is it getting dark? Oh, here we go. And the light didn't come on, which one would you do? Change the light bulb or tear the wiring out of the wall looking for a short? Right? So you're going to do it's called Occam's razor. The simplest answer is probably the right one. Occam's. It's why kids lie so poorly when they're young. They don't understand. Well, I was walking to school and let's go chicken. And a chicken jumped out of a bush, grabbed my homework, tore it up, and then, you know, whatever, and flew off and laid an egg. Simplest answer is probably the right one. So yes, Courtney, you might be right, but let's stick with, you know, what we're focusing on right now. So the last sentence says that you injected those chickens and they died. Telling what? Keeping it simple? I do try. I try to build. That's what I'm trying to do. I get you. That's why my friends always say, short version. It could happen. Injected chickens get sick. But the chickens that you didn't inject, so did they. Uh-oh. I didn't inject them. Now, sometimes I get these answers about airborne bacteria. Wait a minute. Keep this simple. Let's say, okay, maybe it's not a bacterium. All right, so anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Let's go back to independent and dependent variables. That's important that you understand, because that's what they're going to be doing here. Pencil, please write. Of course not. There we go. I can always do it with my mouse, but I'm left-handed, but I use my mouse right-handed. So when I try to write, it's horrible. This isn't much better, so I apologize. That's a graph, XY graph kind of thing, right? X-axis, Y-axis, all that stuff that you're familiar with. All right, so I'm going to show you what we're going to do in terms of graphically representing the possible results out of this experiment. First of all, you have to know what goes along the x-axis. What goes along the x-axis is typically, not always, but typically is something we call the independent variable. Now, if you've had statistics, you've probably talked about these variable types. But for me, if you haven't, or even if you have, one of the best ways to think about independent variables is to kind of think about the opposite variable, the dependent variable. I know, it's like, oh man, it's the second one. I don't understand the first one yet. Let me show you an example. Let's start with something that everybody's very familiar with. Let's go with month. I'm just going to write the letter. Okay, January through December. And then air temperature. Let me just write temperature. You know what I mean, right? Air temp. Now, what kind of if anybody's got one of them things, draw me a curve, or a line, whoops, didn't even say that shows me what you would expect the air temperature to do throughout the year. Well, I get something to drink. Yeah, something like that, right? Something like that. You would expect the air temperature to rise in the summer and drop in the winter, blah, blah, blah. Anybody surprised by that? Nobody, right? Okay, now, I'm going to ask you a question about independent, dependent variables. I'm going to ask you which one is which. The month along the x-axis is a variable. Temperature along the y-axis is a variable. So I'm going to make a statement to you, and you're going to think about which one makes sense. The month of the year is dependent on what temperature it is. Or temperature is dependent on the month of the year. Which one makes more sense? First one or the second one? Yeah, absolutely, right? The other one makes no sense. It's not August because it's 95. It's 95 because it's August. Now, that's easy enough to understand, right? So what's the independent variable? That's the month. Because temperature is the Y, the dependent variable, because it's dependent upon the month. You see what I mean? Okay, cool. Let me, I have to erase some of that. Oh, shoot. All right, anyway. My pencil comes back. So now we're going to do it with the chickens. You guys are going to help me with this. Think about the dependent variable as being the result of doing something. All right, what's going to go along the x-axis? What's going to be my independent variables? And I'm going to remind you there's going to be two of them. Think about your experimental setup. Your independent axis, if you think about temperature a month again, the month is changing, which is causing the temperature to change. It's not the other way around. So what are we doing along the x-axis? What's our independent variable here? Okay, the chickens. Courtney's right. It's the chickens. You're changing the chickens. And the ones you didn't. Beautiful. Yes, yes. It's two groups of chickens. Don't forget that variables have to vary. So you can't have one variable, right? So I'm going to write chickens that were injected and those that were not. All right. So that's what we're doing. We're chickens over here, chickens over here. All right, injection over here, no injection over here. All right. What's the dependent variable? There you go. Mortality, right? Whether you live or die. Whether you live or die. So let's say mortality. And again, so let's take a look at a possible result. So we got chickens that were injected and chickens were not. What if we had this? All right, is it a bacterium? Just got a few chickens that died. Just a few, but a lot that were. Because some of them didn't die, Dorian? Is that why you're saying that? I mean, if I had done this, would it have made a difference in your answer? Yes, C, injected, N, not injected. Well, again, that's another place where I sort of agree with all of you. Dorian says, just a few die, and that to her is enough to indicate that, oh my goodness, that there's something wrong. But some of you are saying, well, gosh, if only out of 100 chickens one dies, then maybe something got messed up when you were moving the needles around, or not, or something like that, some sort of human error kind of thing. Which brings up a really good point. That's what statistics does. That's why if you've taken statistics, they talk about that statistical significance number. If you've taken stats, that might be somewhere rattling around in there. But if you hadn't, that's what statistics does. Statistics gives us a numerical way to say, oh, that's probably something going on. That might be a bacterium, that might be not. All right. But that's obviously not the focus of this course. So does that make sense about independent and dependent variables? Say it in your head. The chickens dying depends on whether they were injected or not. The chickens were injected or not, depending on them dying. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Everybody cool with me? Where am I going here? All right. Everybody good with that? All right, good deal. If you get, if you get stuck, then come back to me on this. Where are we? All right, nice. Brandon, you told me that the control group was the non-injected chickens. Wasn't that you that told me that? I think it was. So does everyone understand why the control group would be the non-injected chickens? Or was that Jordan? I'm sorry. I could scroll back up, but it'll take me a while. Right? So what we're doing in a control, right? Because the next question says, hi, Penny. What can I do for you? Yeah. Well, then, gosh, y'all's memory is supposed to be better than mine. Sometimes that camera gets, I guess I move around too much. So the next question then says, all right, not just knowing who the control is, what's the purpose of a control? What is the purpose of a control? Why do you have a control? Again, this is a short answer. It doesn't have to be a paragraph. And don't look it up online. There you go. Compared to, baseline. If I say John is taller than, or if, no, wait, let me do better. John is tall. Then what? Is John's taller than an ant? John's taller than a giraffe? I mean, unless I give you something to control to compare it to, then it means absolutely nothing to say John is tall. All right, let me give you a better example. A friend of mine, Rachel, was doing work on Indian River dolphins out in the Indian River. Her hypothesis, her question was, does the presence of human beings in the habitat where you find these dolphins, does it affect their behavior negatively? Now, we talked about this in class the other day, didn't we? Right, we did. We talked about the implications of something like that, right? Yeah, okay. So I don't need to go on that. But do you understand why the dolphins in the restricted area were a control? Because her question was centering around, is it humans that are doing this? So in a control, we say it's different by one variable. What's the difference in those dolphins? Some have humans around them. Some, quote unquote, don't. Okay. What's the difference with the chickens? Some got injected. Some were not. That's right, because it has to be based on something. So when you guys were saying, well, the chickens dying, was that evidence that it was a bacterium? And some were going, yes and no. And I was going, well, it's actually both. This is how we help figure that out. Now, this goes back to what I said about statistics. If a couple of your control die, what? That's where you throw in statistics to figure that out. Nothing is ever known for certain. That's the beauty of life, my friends. All right. What if they didn't have a control? What if they didn't have a non-injected chicken? So they injected and they died. What kind of a mistaken conclusion could they have made? This should be a very obvious answer. Oh, let me think about that for a second. Boy, the fact that they would have pit them at random, not knowing that, and put them into an injected and a non-injected group, Jordan, you see what I mean? They would have had to, say they had 100 chickens and they split them 50-50. They would have to make sure that a good chunk of that 50 would have been by chance. Yeah. Yeah, what Courtney's saying is right there. They would have thought it was a bacterium because remember that was their first hypothesis. So now what are they going to do? The next question says, was this experiment a failure? Why or why not? What are they going to do? Stop? Oh, I'm done. Damn on it, it wasn't bacterium. Thought for sure it was. I'm gonna head on back. What are they gonna do? And this has nothing to do with science, folks. This has to do with human beings. This is the way human beings think. But what I'm saying, Jordan, is in the experiment, I would have had to have put those naturally immune chickens in a larger proportion in the control group by chance. See, this is where that statistics comes in, to have that result indicate to me that it might be an immunity thing, right? If you don't understand, let me show you in class, because that's a really important distinction that you're getting at there. Yeah, you got to get a new hypothesis, don't you? Now, that's the second part of the question, because there's another little write-up, and it's going to go through the same thing. That's right. Over and over until they got an answer, which we already know thanks to Dorian, right? But anyway, it's not the answer. It's not, it's not, I don't want that as the answer. It is part of the answer, but I want a little bit more than just that. And I'm not saying Dorian said something wrong. I'm just saying that it is a thiamine deficiency, but explain to me what it was. And you're going to go, well, it's nowhere written in here. Go online. Go online. You have the internet there, right? All right. Anyway, was this experiment a failure then? What time is it? Oh, good. Was it a failure? Wash my hands. I'm out of here. Done with chickens. No, why not? Why not, Brandon? Good. All of you are saying no. Why? Why not? Emily or Andy, just why was it not a failure? I mean, it ain't a bacterium. We're back to square one. Well, Edison tried 79 different combinations until gases and wires, or 79 different wires, and they finally got one to work. Yeah, it's got like a multiple choice question, right? 4 answers, 2 of them are usually really out there, at least one. You throw that one out, right? Yeah, there you go. You guys got it. People say people don't understand the scientific method. It seems to me you do, because it's not that difficult. That's how you do it. Remember, that's how you drive. Oh, I can't pull in front of that car. He's a little too close. He's going too fast, or, whatever. Everybody good with that? We all like that? We're all going to do good in that assignment? See. All right. And if we have problems with the assignment, you're going to get a hold, even if you're like, oh, man, he said it, but I can't remember. I don't care. I don't care. All right, I'm going to jump through the next slides kind of quickly, not because it's not important information, but because we've already talked about it. This is the characteristics of life. So if you need a little review, these pictures might help. Remember that life is ordered, it's organized. That's a chambered nautilus down the corner. If you're fascinated by that, the way that looks, that's actually the inside of an animal. We'll talk about that in Bio 2 if you're interested. It's my recruitment part. Polar bears. I found something interesting about polar bears the other day. In order to stay warm, not the other day, it was quite a while ago, they took one of their polar bear hairs. My pencil right here. That's a polar bear hair. And they cut it open, and they found out it's hollow on the inside. And that provides insulation for the polar bears. You want a polar bear? Or a chambered nautilus? You don't want a polar bear. Polar bears are one of the polar bears are one of the documented mammals or animals that actually hunt and stalk human beings. I mean, you're out. A friend of mine applied for a job up in Alaska after we got out of grad school, and one of the things he had to be able to do was use a gun. Yeah, it don't happen that way. He wanted because you had to defend yourself, because polar bears. That's the way they are. They actually will come after you. They're not afraid of you at all. I used to see them go backstage. Those ones at SeaWorld had the polar bears, and remind me. Well, I won't remember, but the way the enclosure in the back is built at SeaWorld, where you see the polar bears, a prison built that. People who build prisons, not prison. People who build prisons. For example, the polar bear can't get out unless he hits 2 buttons simultaneously. And since he's got a big paw, he could slap at it. Well, the buttons are recessed. You have to put your fingers in there. There's 3 gates from the main entrance, and at the last entrance, there's a gun. So there ain't no messing around with polar bears. Anyway, what does metabolism do? When animals attack, yeah. I can't watch that because it's like, oh, it bothers me. Mostly for the animal. What does metabolism do? What does it provide for living organisms? Energy. I'll give it to you now. Courtney creates energy, but you're going to find out a little bit later that's not exactly what happens. Seth says gives us energy, right? So it takes in energy and it burns energy. There you go. You guys have got the idea. It's your inner workings. Remember what metabolism really does overall is keeps everything balanced. Keeps everything balanced. Keeps everything in homeostasis. Because I like this sentence, homeostasis mitigates entropy. Mitigate means to slow down. Can't stop entropy. Why is yours messed up, Jordan? Why is your balance messed up? And when we talk about balance, keep in mind that we're oftentimes talking about chemical. Oh, yeah, there you go. So you must take some medication, right? What's your thyroid do? Tell everyone what your thyroid does overall for you. Hopefully you remember, because I'm trying to remember from my A&P days. Yeah, right? It's a big control center, isn't it? So all them hormones, all them chemicals going around your body, which is all part of metabolism, by the way, balance, not just about energy necessarily, all that needs to be balanced out. So, for example, in Jordan's case, you feel poopy. That's a technical term. If you don't have a thyroid, then that balance is out of place, so he needs medication to put that back in balance. Now, Jordan could choose not to take the medication, but Jordan, you're a young guy, aren't you? You don't want to die yet. There you go. Right? That's metabolism. It can involve energy, it can involve chemical balances, it can involve acid pH in your blood, it can involve anything that gets you out of balance is controlled, is supposed to be controlled by your metabolism. All right, so you can either be something like the hummingbird, which just eats pure sugar. Yep, same thing. That's why hysterectomies aren't always the answer. Because then you're back on hormone therapy, which makes things different. Koalas actually removed it, yeah. You can live without it, but of course only with medication. The rabbit there's had those big ears, and what he's doing, which I just think that's a cool picture, is he's cooling off. You see that? Look at his ears. Look at the veins in his ears. Now, we don't have these kinds of rabbits. That's a Texas rabbit, I think. Because I know when I lived out there, they had rabbits. But what do rabbits do with their ears? Well, like us, they listen. But you can see where that's a great radiator, a great way to cool off, isn't it? See, those blood vessels will have blood in, and blood is warm because it's hot outside, let's say, and the air blows through. What you got is a radiator. Isn't that neat? Now, in the wintertime, you can actually do the opposite if it's sunny. Oh, Dorian, they have one out there. It's not really a real rabbit, but it's called a jackalope. And it's supposed to be this fictitious rabbit that's big enough for somebody to ride, and it's got horns on it. It's not really real. But it looks like a jackrabbit with horns on it. It's got this cowboy sitting on it. You even have a statue built to it. And I think it's Van Horn, Texas. I grew up in El Paso, Texas, which is middle of nowhere. But can you see how that rabbit's ears helped him cool off? Now, go to southeast Texas, and not much in West Texas. The name is real for All right. Now, let me ask you a question. If you were looking at rabbits, would you expect rabbits to have bigger ears in the south or in the north? This is the south. Why? Yeah, more heat in the south, right? Yeah. Now, let's kind of switch that around a second for just a moment. We talked about squirrels the other day. I think we did. Why are the squirrels in New York bigger than the squirrels here in Florida? They're both the same species, but when you're up in New York and you're up in the Northeast, you see a squirrel and you go, was that dog? Courtney says, is guys, because it's colder. See, there's this thing that happens in a warm-blooded critter like us. Who else is warm-blooded besides mammals? That's good pizza, though. Lots colder. God, I was up there, my wife and I, and the wind blowing through the through the buildings. Who else is warm? What other organism out there is warm-blooded besides mammals? Mammals have their hair because they're warm-blooded, but there's another critter. It's actually, no, I'm not going to be that easy. But what's the other critter that's warm-blooded? Reptiles aren't. Amphibians aren't, right? That's why they're cold and squishy. It's in the picture. What critter in there? Yeah, birds are warm-blooded too, right? They got really big metabolic rates. That's why we have hair to keep ourselves warm. That's why they got feathers to keep themselves warm. If you want to figure out more about feathers, come in bio too. But feathers weren't made to fly. Feathers were made to keep them warm. They just happened to help them fly. And then, oh my God, when you could fly, that's a big advantage. All right. Koalas eat eucalyptus. That's good for them. Koalas aren't as nice as they look, by the way. If you don't believe me, look online. There's a video. I don't think I saved it, unfortunately, but it's a woman in Australia who's being chased by a koala bear, a male koala bear. So not as cute and cuddly as they look. But anyway, they eat eucalyptus, and that's all they eat. That's a problem. Yes, they are. Plants obviously do this too. Metabolism. Oh, look at this. Isn't this cool? Can you see the... you see the seahorse? She do, right? Yeah, they go crazy on that stuff. Catnip. Eucalyptus does, Brandon? I think that's right. I think I heard about that. I think sometimes they eat so much of it they get drunk and fall out of the trees. My son was in Australia, and I think he was telling me that. Yeah, he does kind of look angry. Isn't that neat? But look how well it's camouflaged, right? So what is that? That's the other characteristic of life. That's evolutionary adaptation, right? And so what happens through that, and the beauty of all of this, and again, this is a Bio2 thing with more detail, but by random chance, some seahorses were born that looks like a coral, a red coral that they're holding on to, and they looked like that, and because they did, they survived better because other critters couldn't see them. Oh boy, I'll say, oh, you know what's even better? Oh, I gotta show you this one too. So again, this is not gross, so this is not the spider thing, but I want you to look at a sargassum fish. I'm going to send you the link to it. It's easier for me to do that than it is to try to post it here because give me this one right. Oh, come on, give me a good one. Here we go. Here we go. Check this out. This is a fish. We have them here in Florida. We have sargassum. Sargassum is that weed that comes up on the beach, and it's very spindly, and it's got these floats on it. You see it on the beach a lot. That's sargassum. Very common weed, but if you look at that picture in the middle of it, of course, you can see the fish. Isn't that something? Oh, and they're voracious little snots too. We had one in an aquarium at school. We used to feed it little bits of hamburger. So now, obviously, that's good evolutionary adaptation for blending in, right? But what else is it good for? So obviously, it's hard to see them if you wanted to eat them. They're not very big, maybe a few inches. I don't remember exactly, but they're not very big. But if that's good for not being eaten, what else is it good for? Right? Right, so it's good hiding from predators, but what else is it good for? Stay in the same realm. Yeah, they can't see you. There you go. Very cool. It's all part of evolutionary adaptation. That's a characteristic of life. This is about Charles Darwin. He took a cruise around the world, saw a lot of really cool things. Now, if you're going, oh my goodness, how is he going to, on the exam? Well, I'm probably not going to ask you that on the exam, right? I do want you to know who Charles Darwin was. He was the fellow that came up with this idea of how living organisms become so diverse on Earth. How many different species are there on Earth? Someone told me yesterday in my lab, I think it was 8.5 million are estimated. That's amazing. Let's talk just a little bit about Charles Darwin, though, right? Let's talk about his theory. Now, his theory is not evolution, okay? I don't know how many of y'all knew that, but well, it depends if they're stinging insects, right, Dorian? So the theory of evolution, that's right, Seth. As a matter of fact, Charles Darwin, in his very first book, that Origin of Species book written in 1859, which I tried to read, but it's tough to get through, right? Anyway, he didn't call it evolution. He called it descent with modification, all right? So the theory of evolution, though, whether you call it descent with modification or not, has been around for years before Darwin. There were guys 100, 200 years. There were researchers that were talking about the life is changing on Earth for many, many years, okay? So what Darwin's really known for is not coming up with evolution, but kind of what Jordan is saying right there, that he came up with the mechanism of evolution. In other words, okay, if you had a really fancy breed of dog and you wanted to make money off the puppies, you would pick a mate that was of that breed as well, right? Maybe if it's AKC, right? If it's AKC something or other, you're going to get another AKC something or other. So you get these AKC something or others that go for $1,000 or $2,000, right? So what that's called, what Darwin called that, is artificial selection. You're going out there and you say, no, you breed. Okay, no, that's a scroungy mutt. He's not going to breed, right? What Darwin's trying to figure out, well, how does that happen to Mother Nature? Who walks around to Mother Nature and says, you breed, you breed, you breed? Well, it didn't work that way. What he called natural selection, unfortunately, that's what happens when breeds become popular. Jordan says they become bred incestuously, which is inbreeding depression. You're supposed to breed with organisms closely related to you. But when breeds become popular, Cocker Spaniels, for example, a few years ago, they started having all these problems. Cocker Spaniels have a lot of seizure issues. All right, so let's see what Darwin was talking about when he was trying to figure out how does that happen in nature. All right, we start at the top with something called a population of organisms. All right, well, what's a population? Okay, well, a population is a group of organisms of the same species, okay, that have the potential to breed with one another. The potential. That's important to understand because if you think about squirrels around Lake Eola and squirrels, say, hanging around Lake Sumter campus, then they're both the same species. Or let's go with the squirrels up north that we were talking about. They're all the same species, but what's the odds that a squirrel in Florida is going to find a mate in a squirrel in Maine? That's a long way for a squirrel to go. He's probably going to find a mate nearby. So what that does is that keeps his genetics nearby. See, it's all about genetics here that works, okay? All right. Now, if we move on from that population of organisms, we can make a couple of assumptions about that. Number one, we're not all the same. Hereditary variation. Right? We're not all the same. You look around us, we're all the same species. We have the potential to interbreed, not inbreed with each other. Right? I mean, you can inbreed. But we're all different, too. Some tall, some short. Remember, tall is John. Tall is John. John is tall. But nonetheless, we're all different. Now, if you looked at squirrels, you might, how does one squirrel tell one from the other? They're different. Maybe one squirrel has a little bit bushier tail than the other one. Maybe one squirrel's a little bit bigger than the other one. Who knows? Maybe they're different. Squirrels know, right? I wonder if squirrels look at us the same way. You ever wonder that? You ever wonder if animals look at us, maybe if they have the ability, cognitive ability, and they go, how do you tell one human from another? They all look alike. Questions that keep me up at night. Actually, they don't. But anyway, all right. Now, the second part of an assumption we can make there, have I lulled you guys into sleep yet? I hope not. Everybody cool with me? You understand what we're talking about here? Everybody's different. So think about a population of squirrels. Think about a population of humans. We're all different. All right, now, we like to reproduce. Of course we do. You got to reproduce because you got to perpetuate the species. Can't live forever. Why? Because you never you never defeat entropy. You never defeat disorganization. Back to metabolism again. All right? So what you're going to do to offset the fact that many of your offspring are going to die, and when we talk about offspring dying, what we're talking about is offspring dying before they reproduce. Think about that. Genetically, remember I said this is all about genetics. When an offspring dies before it reproduces, that unique set of genetic information is gone. And that's going to be important because you're going to see that we're all about our genetics, right? Especially when we get into later chapters. So what you're going to do is you're going to overwhelm that by making lots of offspring. Sea turtles lay about 100 eggs every time they crawl up on the beach. Okay? Out of 1,000 sea turtle eggs, that's 10 nests, okay? 10 average size nests. Only one of those lives long enough to survive itself. Or to reproduce itself, excuse me. Only one of those, only one out of 1,000 lives long enough to go through all of that and actually is able to pass on genetic information. 999 of them are going to die, be eaten before that day comes, by a shark, by a ghost crab, whatever the case may be. Why do some animals different photoreceptors on their eyes like the mantis shrimp? Why would it have 16 different photo while we have 3? Well, that's interesting because sometimes what happens in evolution is we simplify things. right? So the mantis shrimp, with its 16 different photoreceptors, might have them because it's necessary to sense certain types of light in the water. For example, colors of light. Red drops out of water when you go in the ocean. Red light is quickly absorbed, attenuated, we say. Yeah, they are kind of cool. So some of those photoreceptors might be photoreceptors for, say, ultraviolet light, which we don't have any reason to see, but maybe they do. Okay? Yeah, I mean, sometimes when we look at that in evolution, we think, oh, things become more complicated. But in this case, because of the environment, it's actually easier to go simple. Why do we have a need to see, for example, ultraviolet light? Now, some insects do, and perhaps mantis shrimp do as well. I'm not real familiar with them. How many offspring does an average mantis shrimp female create per event? Does anybody know? This is what we're talking about. If you don't know a number, would you say a lot? I mean, how many, do you find a lot of maternal care in mantis shrimp? I mean, you might, but remember, in the case of humans, we tend to have fewer offspring, but man, we're sticking around for a while too. You know, mom and dad are not running us off until we're, I don't know, 18 or 16 or, well, in some cases, my uncle was in his 40s, but nonetheless, right? So if most of your offspring are probably not going to survive, maybe part of it is because you don't really take care of them. Like a mantis shrimp, my guess is probably eggs are shed into the water. The male sheds, oh wait, seahorses, the males take care of the young. That's right. Huh? No, it's a shrimp, not a seahorse. All right, so the shrimp, back to the shrimp, sorry. I was looking at the picture of the seahorse again. So the eggs and the shrimp are shed, eggs and the sperm are shed into the water. They mix, and if they get together, that's good. And the ones that get eaten, you know, that's good, and all this sort of stuff, because everybody's got to eat, but the ones that get eaten, they die. You don't be able to pass on your genetic information. So you're going to make a lot of them. So that mantis shrimp is not going to throw out 3 offspring. They're going to be snagged up pretty quick by the fish. You're going to you're going to throw out 3,000 offspring, right? Just like those 1,000 eggs at the sea turtle. The eel that I worked on in college, females bred twice a year, I think it was twice a year, produced 250,000 eggs each time. So in a year, one female produced 500,000 eggs. Most of those eggs would never become adult eels that could reproduce themselves. So you're going to overwhelm it. No kidding. And then does the male take care of both of them? Remember, male, this is the mantis shrimp again. One for female, one for male. So they lay a female group of eggs and a male group of eggs. That's interesting. In sea turtles, they found out that whether a sea turtle develops into a male or a female in the nest depends on where they are. The temperature. The ones further down that are cooler, I can't remember what sex they tend to become, but the ones further up that are warmer become the other sex. It's amazing. So a little bit of maternal care. Yeah, it's not something we see in a lot of critters, but if you do maternal care, then you can actually have fewer offspring, okay? All right, so let's kind of combine those two principles together. The fact that everything's different and there's a lot of them. And that means if there's a lot of them, there's going to be this idea that there's going to be a competition. And why is there going to be a competition? Well, if there's variation and there's a lot of them, that means there's some that are better at something and some that aren't as good at that. And let's say that is hiding from a predator, reaction speed, okay? Let's say that you're born and, man, you're quick. Why are you quick? Because you were born with a hereditary variation, a genetic variation. By random chance, you just happen to be born that way. And because you're really quick, right now where you are, and because of the environment, oh man, that is, wrong pen, that is so important. I was afraid I'm going to write on the screen with a regular pen. The environment is what dictates all this. And because the environment right now says, man, you got a predator out there that's looking for you. If you get really fast reaction speed, then you can duck out of the way and you can survive. So some organisms are faster and some are slower. Now guess what? If you're faster, you survive more. Oh, those are cool fish too. You survive more if you're faster, okay? And you live longer. Survive more, live longer, same thing. And you have more offspring. Ooh, there it goes. That's the key right there. That's how natural selection works. Natural selection sometimes is called the survival of the fittest. And I'm not real crazy about that because that indicates a fit in a week. It's not really a fit in a week with Mother Nature. Mother Nature in natural selection says that everybody reproduces. Everybody. If you are more fit, maybe you're immune to a disease, maybe you swim faster, maybe you have faster reflexes, you name it, bigger ears so you can cool off, maintain metabolism easier, then what you're doing, all right, if you have that little difference that allows, is you're living longer and leaving behind more offspring. And guess what? Your ears are bigger, you swim faster, your coloration's a little bit more camouflaged because of genetics. And you pass that on to your offspring. Let me see what Seth said. It is more sexual selection than natural. It depends, because not all creatures, of course, have sexual reproduction, right? There's asexual creatures. And sometimes sexual selection is not important, as long as you, like, for example, in guppies, little guppies, females will mate. These fish are weird. They have internal fertilization. They'll mate with all kinds of males. They don't matter. Good ones, bad ones, they don't really care, because what they're going to do is they're going to mate with everybody. So if you're going to mate with everybody, along the way, you're going to get a good one. And hopefully some of his genes are going to make it through. But you got the right idea, Seth. It's all about differences in reproductive success. If you get to reproduce more, you leave behind more offspring. And many of those offspring, maybe not all of them, Is that natural, or why? Betas are internal fertilizers. Let me see this Belgian blue cat. Holy cow! Literally. That's got to be on roids. There's no way. Holy cow. Yeah. Betas are weird fish. All right, so does everybody understand how evolutionary adaptations work? Yeah, no kidding. Does everybody understand what we're talking about here? We're actually talking about if you have an advantage, you were born with it, just luckily born with it. That's the natural selection part. Nobody selected you to breed. You just happen to be born with that. Then you are going to leave behind genetics, and through time, the population, you can't evolve, by the way. Can't evolve. Once you're born, that's what you are. Can't change that. The group of yous, what was the movie? My Cousin Vinny. The group of y'all together evolve. So through time, the population changes. So it becomes advantageous to be what we're talking about, the mantis shrimp having quicker reflex, because you get away from a prey. You come back in a few years, you find that mantis shrimp average reflex rate has gone up. The population has gone up. Those cows. All right, more on that in Bio 2. We'll talk a lot more about that, but that's kind of an overview of how it works, right? So one thing I want to keep in mind again, when folks use the criticism, well, it's just a theory. Remember what a theory is, right? A theory is a set of hypotheses that have been tested over and over and over, and we make predictions, and they come out right. Darwin's original theory of natural selection has there's never been any evidence to show that it doesn't work the way he says. There's only been evidence to show that it does. Animals or organisms respond to their environment. We talked about that, right? And of course, we go with the reproduction. Everybody does it. The little giraffe. You know what these things are called up here? Maybe I'll put that extra credit on the exam just for fun. My wife says, "Do you know what you?" No, yeah, they are horns, really, but they have a specific name. My wife is the one who's not a biologist at all, who told me. She goes, "Do you know what?" Let me see, I'm saying it right. Oh, what is it? No, now I've forgotten it already. Yeah, it has a weird name. All right, reproduction. The bees do it, the birds do it, everybody does reproduction. Why? Because you don't, everybody dies off. Killer whales do it. There's a female, or obviously it's a female, but this is a young calf killer whale nursing on its mom. This is a picture when I worked at SeaWorld of a nice up-close picture. Their nipples are backed by the genital slit. There you go. Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, my wife said, "You know what ossicones are?" I'm like, "What? You're making that up." This is the genital slit. There's a nipple on each side. So now, reproduction is important because, of course, perpetuates the species, but let's go a little bit molecular. Let's get out of the life part of it and talk about the chemical part of it. There is a molecule in you that has a unique ability to make copies of itself. It's unique, right? If you think about water molecules, if you had a glass of, I don't know, 500 million water molecules, you wouldn't expect to come back in a little while and there'd be a million. You wouldn't expect them to duplicate. They might even evaporate. But there is a molecule, very unique, distinctive molecule, that does make copies of itself. Do y'all know what that is? What molecule is that? We have it. They have it. All living things have it. There you go. Yep, DNA. DNA can make copies of itself. That's kind of neat. It's different. We'll talk more about how it does it, but that's DNA right there. And DNA is its genetic code. So reproduction is actually driven by DNA. The reason why we do everything we do, take a shower, go to dinner, buy flowers. Why we do all that is because DNA is making us do it. DNA says, I want to make copies, and the best way to make copies is to make a whole thing. And DNA loves variation. So let's mix it all up. So, all right. So we'll talk more about DNA when we get in later chapters. All right, so now let's get into some newer stuff real quick. Doesn't take long. This is sort of the organization of life on Earth. I'd like to go the other way. Well, it's going to be hard to mix different groups like it. Spiders are arthropods, goats are mammals. So cloning, if we're going to go between species, trans-specific, is probably going to start first within, mammals or insects or something like that. There is? That's not a real spider goat, though. Its milk has silk. A goat that makes a web milk thing. Okay, so it's not a spider. It's a goat that makes a weird milk. 4. Neither can I. Where is it? Oh. Oh. What's missing? Oh, to get it to make the... Oh, I see what you're saying. 6, 5. Biosphere, ecosystem, community. We're all kind of there. All right. Yeah, it is missing 4. What? It doesn't matter. Let's start with the smallest one, though. Let's start with the smallest one, this organization thing. Start with 10 molecules. So molecules are not alive. Water's not alive. DNA is not really even alive, right? But molecules make up things in cells that we call organelles. It has a word, looks like organ, because it's supposed to be reflective of the fact that kind of like our organs, cells have organelles. They have parts that do different things. Sometimes they photosynthesize, if you're one of them. Sometimes they make proteins. They get rid of waste. We'll talk more about them later on. We're still not alive yet, though. We really don't reach the definition of alive, those 5 organization, metabolism, all that stuff we've been going through, until we reach the cell. The cell is the smallest entity with all of the characteristics of life. What kind of reasoning is that? A cell is the smallest entity with all the characteristics of life. Therefore, if things have cells, they must be alive. Inductive. We're starting big. Cells. Let's make a prediction. If you look at something and it's a cell, then it's alive. Is that inductive or deductive? If I look at something and it has cells, I predict it's alive. Sometimes it's easier that way, right? Sometimes easier we go with, yeah, that's deductive. There you go. Predictions are deductive. All right. Let's get back into our frame of reference here. So cells together make up tissues. Tissues become really important in animals. We make very bizarre, very intricate, very elaborate tissues. We find tissues in other critters, though, too. Tissues make up organs and organ systems, and then we make up organisms, and then, what is it? I think it's population that they put in there. Right? Well, we got living things, and all living things live together in deductive. No, oh, be careful. Let's mix 2 of them together. I guess can't be wrong if you put that. Communities are all the living things that live together, all the things that we call biotic. Because guess what? We all live together, right? Even if it's predator-prey, they're living together, right? The predator and prey interact. Fish interact with other fish. We interact with bacterium. They make us sick. They help us out. Plants interact with us. We eat them. They interact with other living things, right? All living things interact. Those are called communities. Now, when you throw in the things that living things interact with that aren't alive, like fish. Fish interact with water, don't they? It's kind of obvious, isn't it? We call those things abiotic. Things that aren't alive are abiotic. Sometimes in science, it's real easy. You just put an A in front of a word. That means the opposite of that. So when you get an ecosystem, you're going to throw in all the living things and all the non-living things. Okay, water, for example, nutrients that plants need, nitrates, phosphates, fertilizers. sunlight for a plant. That'd be a non-living thing that an organism needs, okay? And then you lump those all together and you call them this big thing called the biosphere. Our Earth, right? That unique, or maybe not so unique planet. That's one of the things I think about astrobiology. If they find life, boy, what's it going to be like? It's going to be different, right? Oh, as human beings, we love to classify things. So what we got? We got a few more minutes. Good. Let's kind of go into this. This is interesting because this new kind of is changing as well. But this is the science of taxonomy. You may have seen it before, but it's a way that we classify organisms. We put them into groups based on similar characteristics. All right, so for example, if we look at the phylum Chordata. Now, let me alleviate your fears. This is not a zoo class, not even a Bio 2 class. I'm not going to ask you to recall what phylum organisms are in, so don't worry about the name. It's the concept. Members in the phylum Chordata all share one big giant, well, we share several characteristics, but the one you're most familiar with is the fact we all have a backbone. As a matter of fact, Chordata means cord, string, backbone. Remember, there's other critters who are invertebrates, right? So if we move down in class, you have mammalia. We talked the other day that mammals share some things. One of them is hair, and of course, mammary glands. But the whole point is we got a hierarchy, don't we? We have lots of things in the domain eukarya, so I'm on the right now. We'll talk in just a minute what a domain and what eukarya means. We have lots of different kinds of animals. Some of them have a backbone, some have hair. Some are in the order Carnivora for characteristics that we won't get into, but the ones that put them there. And what we're looking at here specifically is one type of species. An organism that has only one name, Ursus americanus, what we call its binomial nomenclature, right? That's the black bear, Ursus americanus. You put the genus, which is Ursus, so there's more than one bear that's in the genus. Polar bears are in there. Polar bears are called Ursus, I'll spell it for you, merit. That's a polar bear, because they're really kind of do a lot in the water, don't they? You and I, did I spell Ursus right? Oh, U-R-S-U-S, sorry, I left an S off. An F off. An S off, it's Ursus. Jeez, Steve. Here we are. I'm fat fingering this one. There we go, sapiens. That's our binomial nomenclature, right? And it all fits in together. And it keeps everything nice and organized, and early on, that's what it was used for. But later on, we found out that the reason why critters are in these same groups is because they share recent common ancestors, okay? So, like, for example, among the bears, they have a more recent Ursus common ancestor than they do Chordata common ancestor. You understand? So this chart is good for classifying organisms in these groups, but it's also getting an idea of who's related to who. Remember, the reason you're in these groups together is because you're related. We're all in the phylum Chordata because we're all distantly related. We're not closely related. Nobody's saying that you're very closely related to a, what have we got in there, a frog. But you're more closely related to a frog than you are to a starfish. There we go. That much, by the way. See that? See how that fits? And then, of course, we're more closely related to a zebra than we are a frog. You get what I'm going at here? Right? It's all about classifying organisms together. So let's play a game. Let's look at some classifications of critters. Oh, we only got one more minute. We can do this in a minute. Yep. Yeah, well, are they not listed in the carnivores? Oh wait, no, they moved them. They moved them to the artiodactyls. They're actually in with cows. They're actually in with cows for a reason that has to do with the fact of being related to one another more closely than they were. Yeah, take a look at it. Take a close relative of dolphins. One of the close relatives is now is it artiodactyl? Yeah, artiodactyls. Cows and critters with only one toe. Horses, cows, those kinds of things with hooves. Not them. They're actually more related to elephants. So we only got 1 minute, so I want to do one little exercise. This is a group of organisms. You may or may not know what they are. Doesn't matter. But this is kingdom down to a binomial nomenclature for all of them. Let's do a Sesame Street routine. Which of these critters in columns is least related to the other? Least related to the other. There you go, right? Because if you look at it, it shares, it's an animal like the other three, but beyond that, it's in a completely different phylum. All right, human beings, are we more closely related to the one on the left or the one on the right, the red one or the purple one? Gotta have a license. I think over 40%. We're more closely related to the one on the red. Yeah, absolutely. Homo sapiens, us and dogs, Canis, or wolves, excuse me. Canis lupus is the wolf. We go all the way down. We're both mammals, and we separate from there. You got it. All right, we got a couple more slides left, but we're done. We'll get that up when we get together. I think some percentage before you can actually have a wolf mix. I knew a guy up in South Carolina that was actually breeding them to make guard timber shepherds. German Shepherds and Timberwolves. Let me turn the recording off. If you got questions, by all means. Oh, that's the end of class. So I'll turn the recording off. Takes me a little while to get it all processed, but I'll post it later on today. If you have questions or want to talk about anything, by all means, stick around. But I am going to stop the